just got in.
So I just say we've got just some quick housekeeping. Quick housekeeping issues.
Good morning, everybody.
And good evening.
Oh, and good evening to John and Skip. I know you're on the air. A few housekeeping matters. I've got a new shirt. Look at that. That's not really a housekeeping matter, but anyway, so I've got a new shirt. Couple of things. Gary Wilkins, I didn't answer your question properly last week, so I thought I'd go through that just at the beginning and just clarify a couple of things that that I thought I should have said, which I didn't. So going to clarify a little bit of that. The question was, why not put a stop block when I was cutting the little rebates for the shelves? When I was cutting those, there was I had a setup on that, and you asked why not put a stop block in place. The stop block wasn't practical for a couple of reasons. So just let me get a... What I had was I had a fence like that with a router bit in it. This is going to be a little difficult to do because what we did here was I cut from here to the trench on that side, right? So my first cut was through to where you would imagine the stop block would be, right? When I did the other cut, I had to start in the trench, which meant the stop block wasn't in the right place because I had to start here and push the way through. That meant the stop block would have been in the way if we tried to do it with the stop block in there. So that's probably the easiest way I can explain it, is because I cut one through and stopped at the trench, and the other one was I started at the trench and went through, and I couldn't take the stop block off and replace it every single time just to do two cuts, because if you remember rightly, I had to do both sides of the piece of timber. I had to do this one and this one at the same time so that I got my spacing right along the piece of stuff there. So Gaz, I hope that answers your question a little bit. I know it's not the best way to explain it to you, but that was the best I can do considering I've got the thing assembled. So
and sorry we missed it last week.
I missed it last week, and I should have dealt with it last week when I had the chance, but I had a lot of other things happening on my brain at the same time, and often that's what happens. So there's that.
Right.
Now the other thing is we have these lovely sets of plans. Now, for somebody to come up with all of the work involved in putting all of this together and the wizardry involved in working with a computer enough to be able to build all that sort of stuff takes a fair bit of brain power. Now, these are all done by John LAFFERTY. John, very good friend of ours, who does all this work for us, and at the moment John's struggling with some health issues. So what his friend John Wilson has done is set up a GoFundMe page So if you have a spare shilling or two that you can spare to help him through his medical issues, I believe he's having a heart and a kidney transplant, so there's the two biggies in your body, and he's going to get them both at the same time. So as you can imagine, it's going to take a fair bit of time off to recover from all of that surgery. So there's a link to his GoFundMe page underneath, down below in our notifications. So please, if you can spare a couple of bob, you know, I think John would really appreciate that, and we'd really appreciate the fact that our friend is still kicking on this lovely earth we have. So
yeah, that's good.
Best you can do. Don't feel obliged because I said so, but yeah, that's how it is. Now a little bit of advertising for us as well. Derek Lark has come up, well, between him and I, we've come up with the push or the stop on our sandpaper board.
So who knew that the humble sandpaper was getting so much attention? It's got a bespoke box and a bespoke tearing board. I mean, hello.
Anyway, all that ribbing. These are the little platforms. Now we're selling these for $40, and with you count 2 knobs and a pair of T-nuts that you can place in the bottom of your board. So they'll go in the bottom of the board like so, and that's just a matter of moving that back and forth. Make it easy for you to tear up the sandpaper. And unfortunately I won't be supplying the hacksaw blade. You can do that. But this comes in 3 pieces, by the way. So if you pull it apart,
look at the dovetails though.
It's got lovely little dovetails in it, and it's just a matter of gluing the parts together when they're on the board if you want, or you don't have to. You could glue them any, put them any which way you like. So $40 for one of those, plus your postage of course, and we can get those off to you. We've got a red ones or blue ones, depends on what colour you like the best. So they'll be going onto our site at some stage or other. And Jimmy Carroll, you always get around to putting stuff on our site straight away, so it takes a little bit of time. Okay, now back to the project. Now the project was our sandpaper box. This is what we've got at the moment. This is what it looks like with the hinges and everything done on it. So I've still got the tape on the perspex. So I've got a couple of magnets in the door to hold it shut. Cut a little finger stall here, and I've got stop hinges on there. Now I'll talk to you about the hinges because we're going to go through putting the hinges in place, and of course we've got our partitioning. Now the partitioning just fits in like so. I thought about gluing it in, but that's not such a good idea, because if I want a bigger space here because I've got more sandpaper torn up, I can take one out or I can shift them wherever I want them to go. So they'll just fit in like so.
But also you could pull the little shelf towards you if you've got fat fingers.
Yes, if you've got fat fingers you can bring the whole shelf forward and then you get your sandpaper off it, which works a treat. Now the thing fits on the back wall, on the wall, with one of these escutcheon plates. Now Jim Carroll asked me about those before. Jim Carroll has a particular type of one. I'm not quite sure what size his are, but he has one that's just a flat plate and it's just basically a keyhole. These escutcheon plates that I have a little bit of depth to them, so they're hollow in the back, which makes it easy to put the screw on the wall. I put it onto the wall, and when it goes on the wall it just fits on like this. Put it over here, so it just fits on the wall like that, and then you can use it whichever way you like. Now the thing is, the reason I put the escutcheon plate on there was because sometimes I'm working over here or I'm working over there and I've got my sandpaper over here, it means I've got to walk from there to get my sandpaper. But with the escutcheon plate on the back of it, I can take that to wherever my job is and my sandpaper will sit nice and neat in the box. Okay, so that's the idea behind this little project, and it works a treat like that. The escutcheon plate means it sits flat on the bench or wherever you're working with it, and it can stay shut so you don't get it full of dust and all that sort of thing. So we'll put a coat of finish on that today if we get time. I've already finished all of the shelving. Now the shelving were just offcuts of bases that I'd put in ordinary different types of boxes. So I've got some cedar, there's some mahogany, bit of cedar again, another piece of Honduran mahogany, another bit of cedar, bit of jacaranda, bit of silky oak. So there's lots of different timbers that you can use just as shelving. So they're just offcuts.
Pretty classy shelves.
Pretty classy shelves, yeah. Okay, so our first task, what we're going to do with this box now is to do a lot of the fiddly stuff around it. As I mentioned in our setup, we're going to do a lot of the fiddly stuff finishing off the box. So our first task is I'm going to work out which way's the right way. So I've got all of our, so that one goes together like that. Remember we cut this off last week, and since then what I've done is I've sanded the sides of it just to make it sort of nice and smooth to start with. So what I want to do is I want to put a finger hole in here, so it'll open this way. You'll notice with this one I've got a big gap at the top. That's so that I can put sanding block in there. Okay, so I've got room to put all my sandpapers and place to put my sanding block. Okay, so I'll have to mark this just to make sure that I've got it right. So my grain is correct there, grain is correct there, grain is correct there. So a little piece of chalk. I'm going to use a piece of chalk because I don't want to scratch it any more than it's already scratched. Okay, so those two bits will go together when I put it together. Now, that's the bottom of the box. And so this side here is going to get the finger stall. So what I have to do with that, just get that bit out of the way. Ruler, pencil. Find my centre. You don't have to put this on the centre, or you can put it at the top or the bottom, depends on where you have it hanging in your wall. 50. Now, depending on how big you want your finger stall, depends on how wide you have it here. Let's say 20 mil, I don't need a lot. So it's 40 millimeters from this mark to this mark. So that's in the centre. Let's put those marks on there. Just need to be able to see them. And the router bit that I'm going to use on that is my box core bit. Okay, so this is one of the router bits that comes in our kit. That's the same router bit that I use to put the finger stalls in these boxes here. And you'll notice on this box, it's in the middle of the piece and we've got a cut out on both sides. I'm not going to do that with this one. This time what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut out the section right on the edge, so it just creates a little nick basically. Now how high you want it, depends on how deep you, or how fat your fingers are really. So I'm only going to do a small one, I don't need a big one. So just where the round over starts, on the router bit, should be adequate. And as you can see, it's not very high, quite small. And now we're working on a fence. You need to have a fence. And we'll need a couple of stops. So I'm only going to go to half the thickness of the router bit. So if I bring the fence over so it covers half the thickness of the router bit.
Bit hard to see that.
Yeah, it is a bit hard to see, but that's all I'm covering. Just half the thickness. So it's right down the centre of the two parts of the router bit. Clamp this in place. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to line my two marks, this one and this one, with either side of the router bit and put a stop on. So this mark here will go on the left hand side of the router bit. You can't see it, but that's what I'm doing. And the other one on the other side, on the right hand side of the router bit. Put up another stop. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is I'm going to put up against the stop here, push in, and then move along to that one there, and that should give me half the diameter of the router bit showing in here. You need to go relatively slowly because when you come to the end here you may end up with a little bit of tear out. So you've got to go very, very carefully. So ears on everybody. Looks a little bit daggy there, but it's actually not too bad. Just get a bit of sandpaper to clean it up. And there's my little finger stool. So when you sit that on the box, you get this lovely little cutout, just enough to get your fingers in. You can make it higher if you like. If you can't get your fingers in a narrow one like that, you just have to lift the router bit a little bit more. Okay, so it's just a matter of coming up some more. But it's only 40 millimeters long, plenty adequate to do what you need to do with it. Okay.
So when you take the router bit out of the router, can you put it on the table for us so we can have a look?
Yep. Let me get this stuff out of the way. Now that's the smaller version of the box core bit. You can buy them in bigger versions if you want a bigger radius. So it's up to you as to what size, but that's the one that comes in our kit. The one I use to make the finger stores for all the little boxes that we do. Now my next task is to round over all the top edge, down here, and down here. The difficulty I have is that it's all in two pieces. Like I've got two parts, which makes it really hard to actually round over that edge. So what I'm going to do is round over the top edges of that, and I'm going to tape the two box parts together and then round off all the four corners. So that'll make it quite easy to do. So first task is to do this one. Now when I I'll get to it in a second. When I did the inside section of here, if you go back over the last couple of shows, you'll see that I've rounded over the inside edges of that. I used the smaller version of the round over bit that we use, that we sell in our kits. Right? Now that's a 3/16 radius in this one. I've got the next one up, which is a 1/4 inch radius, to do the outside edges because it's a relatively big box, so I can go up a bit and make it a bit more rounded and soften the edges of it. So I'm using the 1/4. That's a 1/4 radius in the round over. So that one, go back in the box. And set up with this one. It just makes it a little bit easier to manipulate. You haven't got sharp corners or edges on something, particularly when you're moving things around your workshop. Okay, it's set up here. What I'm doing is setting it up so that it's just missing the edge. Just like that. Just want it to miss the edge.
Can you turn the table around for me?
Yeah. Just get that sorted.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's put that aside for a sec. And what I'm going to do is rotate around this like so. So here's on everybody. You can see here I'm going with the grain along that one there, and I've just gone against the grain a little bit there, so it's got a little bit of tear. So it's going to necessitate a little bit of hand sanding just to get that tidied up and make it look pretty. So that won't take a great deal of time. The next thing is to do all of the corners. And so we fit this together. And when you put this together, make sure you've got it perfect when you fit it together. So that when you do your edges, and what I'll do is I'll just clamp that onto the bench. With a clamp, I'll put it away. Push that up against the fence, set it flat, so I'm flat on here and here. Tape. Somebody forgot to fold the corner over. when I put this together, I'm going to make sure it's pulled in tight. Around and do the other side. The tape won't interfere with any of our rounding over because we've already done the top edge. Okay, so now it's just a matter of running along our corners, there, until that's done. So it's the other way. So, ears on everybody. Now you can tell that those router bits have actually been doing quite a lot of work. The reason you can tell that is because you've got little burn marks, which are not hard to remove, a little bit of sanding, on the rounded over edges, particularly on the end grain. So those router bits either need sharpening or we relegate them to the don't use anymore. Okay, so now we have a box that's starting to have a little bit of character. Got nice rounded over edges, we've got a nice little keeper hole there. Now it's just a matter of fitting hinges. Now this is the hard bit. This is the bit that, that most people dread, basically because people struggle with fitting hinges. Now hinges are not always fitted in a particular way.
In one particular way.
In one particular way.
Yeah.
get my other box down here. So what I've done here is I didn't want the box to open to 90 degrees, so it doesn't, I only wanted it to open to there. But the other thing I didn't want is I didn't want the hinge protruding too far out the back. So what was the answer? The answer is, number one, you could have a butt hinge that opens up and you could have a stay on here. But that would look ordinary, it would look awful, and it'd be very, very difficult to fit. So the butt hinge is basically out of the question. That if the butt hinge is if you had a butt hinge on there, it would open to 90 degrees, and if you're sitting it on the bench, because it sits on the bench, you only want it to open to 90 degrees anyway. You don't want it to open all the way, because then it puts pressure on the screws. So that's not going to work at all. And there's probably a number of different answers that you could have, but that's the one I've got for butt hinges, and so therefore we're not going to use them. So what I've got is stop hinges. Now this stop hinge is a 1-inch stop hinge. You can purchase these from Jimmy Carroll in Carroll's Wood Turning Supplies. He's got quite a number of them, so you can get those, but the cheaper versions necessitate a little bit of work to actually get them to work like that. So they need to be sanded, polished, and all sorts of things like that, because they're made in China, and you know, quite a cheap version. But the other problem is these aren't wide enough, because we've got 12mm material. You'll notice that if I sit the hinge in to the front edge, there's only a tiny bit sticking out the back, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. Those basically, because I don't want a whole lot of things sticking out the sides of the box. Normally it would sit like so, because of the way the hinge works. The hinge has got little square corners on it, and when you open it, those square corners get caught, so you've got to adjust for that. And normally you would sit the hinge in, so this much of it would be sticking out the back of the box, or the back of the whatever you're making, cabinet. And so therefore what would have to happen is you have to cut a little rebate. That means a little bit of chisel work here, and you can do that, that's not a problem, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to cut a rebate and fit the whole hinge so that it fits all the way to the inside edge of the box, like this one. So they come all the way in to the inside edge. It's a simpler and easier way of doing things. It just necessitates a little bit more work to do. So
we have a look at the back of the box again. No, sorry, the
back of the hinge.
Yeah.
You'll see on the back of the hinge there, I've got use this as a pointer. I've got little bits, rebates cut out. Okay, they're just filed out. We're going to do that. We're also going to put a chamfer on both the box and the lid, so that when you open it, it can open out far enough. That's one of the problems that occurs when you're setting these right in. So you need to make sure that you've got that 45-degree rebate in the back of the box. I won't do that until after, but we'll fit the hinge first. So
when do you do the chamfer to allow for the lid? Is that near the end of the process?
Towards the end of it, yeah. We'll do the chamfer once we get the lid fitted. Now, where do we put the hinges? The issue we have here is because what I've done is I've cut 25mm gaps between all of our spaces, and they're not all centered. Okay, so you can see I've got a small gap here and a big gap here, so that, if I moved it along a little bit, would give me a big gap on either side, but that means I could center these, but you don't have to center them. So I'm going to put one there, and I'm going to put one there. Right? there if I like. It looks a little bit more even, I suppose. Actually, I might do that. Make sure it's nice and even. So I need to know where the bottom edge of that is. So the top edge of that rebate. And the bottom edge of this rebate is where we stop and start with our measurements. So I need to get my measurements. A piece of something to draw on. So my measurement from the back edge (66mm). 60. So bottom edge 66mm, and the top edge is going to be, actually it's not too far off, 61.5. You'll see why I need these in a minute. 61.5. Bit of sawdust. Sorry about that.
Aussie says, what about nice decorative hinges mounted to the outside of the box?
That's the point. That's like I said. There's a lot of ways you can hinge this, and if you want to put decorative hinges on it, by all means do so. I'm trying to sort of create something that I want around here, not. Well, I don't have any decorative hinges anyway, so I've only got these ones.
Yeah.
But you can.
That would work.
It would work. Hinging is, like I say, it's one of those things that is basically a pain in the neck for a lot of people.
It's very much a matter of taste and ability, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So sometimes the simplest, people go for the simplest possible solution.
Yep. And I have seen some tasty hinges on the outsides of boxes, but this is just another technique. So now what I have here is I have a straight cutter, that's exactly the same size as my hinge.
Even though it doesn't look it.
Even though it doesn't look it. It's a huge big thing.
It's a beefy looking thing, yeah.
But it's exactly the same size as the hinge. So that's a 1-inch hinge, that's a 1-inch router bit. Now when I set this up, what I need to do is have a tester. So I don't want to bore into the box and then realise I've either cut it too short or too deep. So I have to get my height right. And one way of getting that right where do I put the hinges? There we are. Is set up your light tool to the thickness of the router bit of the hinge. That's the thickness of one leaf.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
So I'm going to set my router a bit to that.
Bit hard to see.
Okay, I'll just test it by putting my, this works. So all I've done there is just set the hinge on the bench and just feel a tiny little bit of a setup. Okay, now to a tester. This is one of the offcuts. One of my offcuts that I push block is on. And you can see that that fits beautifully in there. It's just spot on. Okay, so it fits in the groove itself. So that's what we're trying to achieve. All right, now I need to get the measurement for our parts. This is where it's important that you remember top and bottom, because they're going to be in different places. Okay, so this is the back of the box here. So I'm going to have one here and one here. This is the top, and the top one is, let's see what the top one measurement is, 61.5 millimeters. So set my fence, and when you set the fence, make sure that your ruler or the measuring object that you're using goes through dead center on the router bit. And so that point of the router bit and this point of the router bit should be the shortest distance to there. Right through the middle. 61.5 from the top on the back. So all I need to do now is pass through there, and that one will be through here.
Why don't you mark them with chalk?
That's a good idea, probably. Back edge. They're my bits.
That wasn't quite what I meant, just marking the top from the bottom.
I could have. So here's on. Now if you have to rectify anything here, you do it before you actually move it to the next one. So what I've got is
Nice.
a perfect fit in there. It needs a bit of a tidy up, of course, but that's going to fit perfectly into there, and you can see it comes in almost flush with the back of the box. Okie doke. Now I've got to do the other side. This time we start with the box over the router bit, push through. and they have a perfect fit. You'll notice we flash on the top. Everything fits together quite nicely, so it's quite a nice fit. So I'm going to do this bottom one now. And the bottom one was a different measurement. It was 66 millimetres. The reason I'm doing 66 millimetres, for those of you who missed the first bit, was I'm trying to get between the shelving sleeves. Just check that. So this time I'm on the other side, so sit over the top of the round a bit. Here's on. This one. We didn't get that measurement correct.
Wow.
We've cut it too far. Should have been 71 millimetres. So okay. I have a little error there, but I'm not going to try and overcome it by anything. I'm just going to adjust the shelf that goes in there. So not everything works properly. What I could do is I could adjust the measurement and then put a block of timber in there and repair that. And somebody asked me today what sort of filler I use. This is a perfect example of how to fix it.
Was that John O'Connell?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Let's try that again, eh?
See, there's always a way to fix the blunders.
Always a way to fix it.
Yeah.
71 millimetres. Trying to think of too many things at once.
And all you need is coffee.
Yeah, I think you're right. Ozzy, you let me down, mate. Where's my coffee? I'm going to rectify this just to show you how to fix it. So we'll go for another week, because I'm going to show you how to fix it so that it's exactly right. Something I don't often do is show people how to rectify an error. So we have this error, let's rectify it. Not today, but we'll do it next week.
Gary Wilco says, coffee with a shot. Yeah. Yeah, later
it's
today.
A bit early, Gaz.
Yeah, but we take you in. We can substitute chocolate for the shot for morning tea.
Yeah, we could. Okay. Now, I've just got to make sure I fix up the right one.
Yeah.
Which one was it? The top one?
No, you need...
Yeah, it was the top one.
Yeah, okay.
I'm pretty sure... No, it wasn't the top one. Top one's right. It's the bottom one. Don't panic, everybody. We'll have it organised. Make sure I get the right one. Who was it suggested we put outside hinges on?
I think that might have been Aussie.
Was that you, Aussie? It might have been a good idea, mate. Just tidy up around the cut.
Cole, you're going to tell the team that you're going to be doing a little bit of wood turning in the new year.
Oh, I reckon you could do that.
Oh, all right. So Cole is a very experienced wood turner, and his wood turning has taken a back seat while we've owned the business. So I feel it's now time that we can actually introduce the odd wood turning session. It's just add a bit of light and shade to all of the box making, break it up, show some technique, and you actually get a very quick result, unlike a box that can take, I don't know, 4-6 weeks. With Cole's wood turning, he turns out a beautiful object in that session. So we think that that could be something else that might attract people's attention and their interest and show off your skills. So we'll keep you posted when we decide to put one up. We're thinking it might be one of, sometimes it could be a really good filler in between the long box making sessions, that we might have a couple of wood turning sessions just to actually show what you can do.
Anyway, back to our little box. What I have now is I've got 2 hinges. You can see on this one here I've got that little gap that I just created there accidentally. We're going to fix this little bit here. So it's just a small amount, so not very big. Still have our shelf fitting in there, but I've got to fill that little gap there. So we'll do that next week. But right now I just want to fit those 2 hinges. This one here fits perfectly, so it's not a problem. And this is the way I fit them. Just a solid little piece of stock. I sit it on like so, on the inside of the box. Cramp it in place. Just a couple of cramps on there so it doesn't move. And then, using my little drill that has spring-loaded end on it, sit that into the hole and a drill in there, and then I was going to try and put some finish on this today, but I don't think we're going to have time. We've only got 5 minutes left. And if I hadn't made that error, we'd be doing something with it. But
I think this
next
correction
week
is just as important, isn't it?
Yeah. So if I put that screw in there. Now the thing about this is you do not try and close that, basically because the square corners on the hinge won't allow it to happen, and we have to adjust for those square corners.
So don't close the hinges
So
at
don't
this
close
stage.
the hinge, just a matter of fitting it. So making sure it goes in the right spot. And this one here I'm going to have to pull it up that way. have the screws here somewhere.
So we've gotten some good feedback about doing some wood turning, Cole,
Okay,
which is lovely.
so who wants to know about that?
Well, John Para's up for it, and Popeye and Olive.
Okay.
Dave Rowland, he says, oh God, now he's going to go and have to buy a lathe. But he'd watch you do anything with wood, so.
Thank you, Dave. Love the support.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically where our hinges are going to be anyway. Okay, so we'll end up putting both of those hinges in there. Now, I'm going to take the hinges out. Actually, I'll put them upside down. This one's up the wrong way. The other way up.
I have to apologise for the dodgy camera work today. Sometimes I just don't know what Cole's going to do next, and I have trouble keeping up.
It's the new shirt, see?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, so that's what's going to happen there. That's the way they're going to be. And as you can see, I can't shift them. They won't move because of the square corners on here. So we have to mark, we're running out of time very fast, section here and here. I can see this is going to go into next week, unfortunately. I was going to try and start a new project next week, which involved a little bit of turning. Now here's another little thing that people neglect to do. Because I've manipulated the hinge, excuse me, what I need to do is make sure I mark, that's number 1, this is hinge 1, and those two marks go together when I put the hinge back there. So very important that you do that. This one's going to be number 2. Okay, come in close on this one. You can see when the hinge is open, it's square. As you close it, I don't know if you can see that, you can see that this part of that pivot point protrudes. See how it sticks out? And we need to allow for that by putting a little chamfer on, because that won't allow the hinge to actually close up. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can now.
So
just do that again.
You can see it protrudes out past the base of the hinge.
Let me see if I can get over the top of it so you can actually see. Yeah.
See how it sticks out?
That's better.
It's yeah, it's because of the way the hinge is made, so that it actually stops. You need to have this flat face on this inside here to hit against the inside edge of that base part. You need to adjust for that. So what I've done is I've put a little rebate there. Well, not a rebate, a mark, and then I'll use this just little triangular file. Cut myself a little line, about 45 degrees. If I get one fitted at least, I'll be able to see. You can see just filing that little section out. Now you need to adjust it and judge it depending on where you've got the hinge fitted and how big your hinge is. so I've got a fair bit out there. I need number 2. And so now that allows that hinge to actually open and close. So that's what we want to do. When you're doing the other side, you're going to have 2 parts because you've got 2 corners, this one and that one. So that will allow that to open and close. Scraping a little bit, so I've got to take a little bit more out. So what I have to do is fit those. And I might actually leave them and fit them as part of next week's show rather than actually do it for you.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think it's important that they see the whole process.
So from the beginning to the end, how they fit. So I'll leave that box as is. I need to put a 2 on here. Got 2 on the hinge. So that will be it for today. Now, don't forget we'll get that done and we'll put a finish on the other one and make it all look pretty and do some work to it for you. So what I'll do is I'll sand up overnight. I'll sand up all of those little marks we've got off there and get that ready to go. So all we have to do then is fit the hinge and the magnets. We haven't done those yet, so we're going to do those next week as well. So
it also mentioned that, did you say that the stop hinges are available from Carol's Woodcraft?
Carol's Wood Turning Supplies.
Woodcraft.
Or Woodcraft Supplies.
Yeah, and it's down below in our info
yes,
below.
A link below for that. So get onto Jimmy if you want the 1-inch stop hinges. They're called stop hinges. So yeah. So next week we'll be hinging, doing that repair, magnet, bit of finishing, and that should finish that box off quite nicely. So don't forget, as I said at the beginning of the show, if you've got a spare shilling or 2, please jump on the link that we have below for John Lafferty's GoFundMe page. So have a look at that, and we'd really appreciate it if we could get a few bucks for him to help him through his troubles at the moment. So take care, everybody, and I hope you all have a good week. We didn't get through everything we wanted to do, but hey, next week's another show. So have a good week, everybody, and I'll see you all later.